All right.
I'll just go ahead and act like this isn't a normal episode of the KAAMP and just say it's a normal bonus episode for the KAAMP for all my wonderful listeners. Every now and again, they get a bonus episode dropped on them when I get to talk to other creators about what it is that they create. So this episode is kind of going to be exactly that. And I'm happy to have you here, Paul. So if you would introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do, and then we'll talk about why you do it.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Thomas. So my name is Paul Miller, and I identify as a comedy juggler. That was the first thing I really wanted to be once I was old enough to decide what I wanted to be for real. And so for the last 20 years, I've been traveling around presenting my comedy juggling. And in that time, I've done a lot of things, but one of the things that brought us together, actually the thing that brought us together, is I started making hand sacks, the flop ball. And that was in 2018 is when I started producing them for real. I was doing it from my own programming needs, but they kind of got a little bit of life on their own outside of my use for them. So,
I don't know if you can see this, Paul, but I'm going to tell everybody listening that you have a giant smile on your face right now talking about football, and it's great.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean,
so what is flop ball and why do you do it?
Yeah. So, well, flop ball is a hand sack. It's a flat, stand-filled 2-panel sack that you play with traditionally on the back of your hand. It comes out of the tradition of Miyachi in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that's where the rules of back of the hand and no palms kind of came about. But I started using hand sacks as a juggling ball substitute, actually. I was doing programming where I was talking about mindfulness and the process of learning new skills and how we deal with success and failure and all the things that go along with growth. And I was doing that with a juggling lesson, which was great because I love juggling and I love teaching people to juggle. It's my way of making friends and playing with people. And, but in a performance setting, if you're in a theater or something, having juggling balls flying and rolling away is a little bit cumbersome. So I was looking for something that was easier to work with. And so I invented, quote unquote, a anti-roll juggling ball, a hand sack. And so I was using them as my innovative juggling balls. But I was familiar with hand sack and the Miyachi specifically before that. But I never really spent any time playing with it in that way. But then I started fiddling with it, and I was quickly like in love with it. It kind of took what I was already doing, throwing and catching and doing tricks, and kind of turned everything upside down because I was using a different part of my body that was pretty accessible. Yeah, right. And but as I was playing with it, I realized that all of the challenges, or many of the challenges that we face when we say, "Hey, we're going to teach you to juggle." People have pre-existing notions of what juggling is and whether it's easy or hard or whether they can or can't. And although that's, helpful a little bit in talking about mindsets and that sort of thing, if you have a whole audience and you say, "Hey, we're going to juggle," half the audience, the heart's going to drop because, they're not going to have a positive, enthusiasm for it. And so I realized, we can do the same sort of thing with the hand sack. We're still learning skills, we're practicing skills, we're having successes, we're dealing with failures, but the barrier to entry is a lot simpler, and people feel like they can have success sooner. If you want to learn how to juggle 3 balls and you're doing really good with 1 or 2, you might not feel like you're doing great because you're not doing it yet. So there's this idea of what success looks like. With the hand sack, nobody has any idea what success looks like. Nobody's even thought of doing anything in the back of their hand. So if they can throw and catch it, they're already feeling like they're having success.
Right.
And so that kind of shifted most of our programming. I mean, we still teach juggling and do other skill toys as well, but most of the work that we do now is rooted in the hand sack because it's just it's novel, which is nice. but it's easy, it's fun, it's refreshing, and so yeah, so that's why we started making it. And then, not too long after, I just started putting them on the internet, figured people could buy them, and that's when this latent community of handsack players started bubbling up, and really, that's, out of everything, that has been one of the aspects that brings me the most joy that I would have never anticipated.
Yeah, you didn't know a whole army of older millennials that missed hand sacking and from the late 90s and early 2000s still desired it so much, and when they found your stuff on Reddit said, oh holy crap, I have to buy one of these and get back into the thing, because that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I mean, that right, I started getting sales and people would find me, and so that's good. It's nice to have something that sort of supports and satisfies the needs of the market. Hey, there's no hand sacks. I want one. But the thing that's been a real joy, and I didn't come up in that community or that environment, so, and I didn't really even pay attention to it. So like, there's a whole culture of play and styles of play, and then there was the message board. So there's this whole group of people that know each other or knew each other 10, 15 years ago when they were tweens and teens like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're coming together again, on our weekly or monthly flop jams. And it's just, it fills me with joy to create a space for people to reconnect and recoalesce around this thing. In a lot of ways, like, I feel like, I get to sort of be the witness to it. I'm not experiencing nostalgia. I'm not remembering players. So I'm not, I kind of feel like I'm sort of outside the group in some ways, but it's so awesome to watch it happen and know that, I play a role,
right.
in that. So
I can only imagine how pleasing it is to see a thing you create foster something positive that was totally unintended.
Yeah. I mean, I would have never guessed people would have been like, "Oh, I miss these so much. I love them. Thank you." Like, I get that. That's the thing I hear so much. Thank you. I mean, I don't know. I've never sold stuff before where people are like, "Oh, thank you so much for." I mean, I guess shows people thank you afterwards, but right. It's really been wonderful. It's really been wonderful.
Well, it was a good day on the internet when I discovered a post of someone's about the flop ball on Reddit, and I knew immediately I must rush off and purchase at least 3 of them. and yeah, so that was, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, something like that, a little less than a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought, I don't know, I probably spent $20 or $30 on my first order, which is a pretty hefty order for the items on your site. And
sure.
And I received enough variety of items to keep myself wholeheartedly busy and entertained in all the ways one can use these toys, or skill implements. What do you like to say, toys? What's the official verbiage that you like to say? I don't think I've asked you that.
Yeah. Yes. So, for the last, up until about a year ago, skill toys, it was, what I called them. And I still like that. I actually, started a project like 10 years back, which is where I met a lot of the, none of the flop ball players, but, where I met like a lot of skill toy players years ago. I had a project called Skoys, which is skill toys, Skoys. So that's how I refer to it. Flow tools, I know some people use. I like kinetic play tools, or refer to the style of play as kinetic play. Kinesthetic play is sort of a category of play that was defined by, what's his name? A guy that wrote a book on play. His name's escaping me right now. But it'll come to me. But he defined all sorts of different styles of play and actually play personalities. And the kinesthetic play is sort of bodily play. So running, jumping, climbing trees, swinging sticks. I feel like kinetic play is sort of a subcategory of that, where the focus is doing tricks with things. There's no winning or losing. It's not really a game, although it can be competition and, that sort of thing. But you're basically doing tricks with simple shapes and exploring the basics of geometry and physics. So kinetic toys, skill toys, hand sacks, flat balls. Those I use them all pretty interchangeably.
And that kinetic toy or kinetic tool is the one I think is most accurate.
Yeah. I think you're right. A skill toy is kind of puts a lot of pressure on it in that, it feels like, oh, I don't have skills. Well, nobody has skills until they start doing something.
Right.
And, everything's a skill, balancing and walking is a skill. So, I do feel like that makes it a little exclusive or a little, creates a little, apprehension in some people, perhaps.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Coordination tools. Yeah, I don't like that. So, yeah, I think.
When was the first time you purposely threw something with the back of your hand?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I was at a fish show in 1999, and I came across the Miyachi RV, and I got my first Miyachi there. So I know at least 1999. I mean, as a kid, I grew up in the suburbs of Massachusetts. I had woods behind my house, so I was always, we had neighborhood kids, but I spent a lot of time out in the woods throwing rocks and collecting sticks and doing that kind of stuff. So, honestly, I was probably balancing and throwing and doing all that stuff, as a 10-year-old in the woods, just passing time, being outside. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess as a juggler, if we were looking for an actual date, I did practice juggling on the back of my hand probably a couple years after learning. So I'd put that back to like 1990. 92, 93.
So you've been throwing stuff on the back of your hands for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say I got a lot better in the last couple of years.
I would imagine there's been a lot more dedicated time to that practice the last few years.
Yeah, for sure. It's been I play with all sorts of toys. Like juggling was my first foray into skill-based play. I learned to juggle in high school out of a book, changed my life. Before that, I didn't have anything that was getting me a lot of positive reinforcement or giving me something to sort of be self-motivated at getting better at. So I learned how to juggle out of a book, Klotz's book. It came with the 3 juggling balls, and probably the only reason I ever picked up the book because I wasn't a reader. And
it came with toys.
And then so I spent years exploring all the different skill toys that there are. And I can hold my own for most of them. But when I started playing with the hand sack, I immediately fell in love. And it's not because I was making them, but rather the simplicity of the play opens up a tremendous amount of opportunity and exploration, which I was not expecting. And specifically the round hand sack, the Miyachis and throwbacks that we make. It's a technical toy. It has a non-stable spin. So when you're playing it, it's kind of tough. But with the round sack, because it just flips, uniformly in any direction, it just opened up the possibilities for me. And then as I started playing, just more and more paths sort of revealed themselves in how to explore. And then because it was sort of a new prop for me, and I didn't have a lot of, I didn't have any experience with it, it allowed me to, like, this sort of fresh space to explore this kind of play that, I have a pretty robust, experience with, but not with this specific prop in this specific way. So I got to take all of my experience with all the things that spin and flip and swing and fly and slide and sort of apply it to this brand new platform.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a few years in and what boggles my mind is that I'll be playing with it and I'll I'll discover something new. Like I keep finding like all these avenues of expertise or things that I can do, but like, oh, there's the reverse of that exists. And it's just, so I don't spend a lot of time on drills, working on skills and stuff, but I definitely spend more time than, above average amount of time playing with it.
Yeah. I usually have one on my person and maybe one or two in the car at any given time. Is that a similar experience in your life?
Yeah, I got them everywhere. Yeah. I mean, it's great. I mean, it's so easy to pick up and just start playing, and it's a little bit more, reserved or subtle than juggling. Like if you pull out juggling balls standing in line and start juggling, people kind of get annoyed. People see you. It draws a lot of attention, which is fun and good if you want to draw attention. But sometimes, I just want to chill and, listen to my music. So I like that they're small and portable. You just bust them out, start playing.
So
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, yeah, I have a question for you.
Ask. Please ask.
I went back. I was like, how did our collaboration, start out and all that? And so I went back to our thread and, right from, hey, I just bought some stuff. Thanks for the order. And you bought the leather sack, yes. The leather headset. And I was like, whoa, boy, that's a hard one. It's slick, it's stiff, and I remember you're like, I'm gonna break it in.
Yeah,
I'm like, whoa, you're gonna be a ninja if you break it in.
I totally understand the demands of this particular material because I was also one of those people that lovingly played with silk miyachis, and like those are, oh God, how do I put this? Unendingly frustrating. So I was totally okay with having something equally frustrating in the sense that I know how to handle myself when I get mad and drop this thing. So playing with something difficult to play with is a useful tool in my intentional play. To use terms that you use for your product ethos, my intentional play is intentionally made more difficult by using that particular tool. And some days I really want that challenge, other days I don't, but it is nice to be able to have the variety of tools to challenge myself in the ways that I want to be challenged when I want to be challenged. If there's a day where I'm just feeling extra like on my game or willing to be humbled, sometimes both, I will grab an implement that is difficult to use, and sometimes it feels great, and then other times you just feel crushed. But that is, the duality of using that type of tool. But honestly, the leather flop ball that I have, to give you feedback, has not really broken in much at all, and it's spent a lot of time in my pocket, and it's spent a lot of time just being like fumbled around in my fingertips. And you know what? If it never becomes soft and supple where it just droops across my finger, I won't be upset, because then I will know that is the level of difficulty that this item carries, and that's fine.
I do. That being said, I do want to see a little bit more of a supple leather sack. So know that one of those might be coming out.
I will.
Because
I'll keep my.
I feel like a good rawhide would break in. This one, I don't know.
Well, that one is a thick material to begin with, but if there was a rawhide or rawhide equivalent, I would definitely be interested in giving that a try. If it felt like a really nice chamois cloth that you would dry your car off with, boy, let me tell you, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
But so far, the what is it? The suede, the micro suede. Those are the micro suedes and the denims for day in, day out play. Those are the ones that I gravitate to the most.
Yeah.
But yeah,
me too.
That is where this conversation started, and if we're going to tie this into more directly to the reason of this conversation, I was pretty uppity about asking you for some sort of involvement in an artist series, Flop Ball, because selfishly, I've always wanted to put art on a toy just as a personal achievement as an artist. And then, I have to pick my battles when I put my foot in my mouth in this way, because a lot of times people say no. But I think you and I met in the middle in a really fluid space about creativity and play, and a really amorphous mindset about how these things can mix together in a really healthful way. And I found some art that I had made that fit the ethos of the tool and how you like to run your business. And I feel as if the design I put forth is very complementary to the thought processes of how one goes about using these items. No straight lines, everything's curved, it's all flow, and you can trace your eye or your finger along this design endlessly and never come to an end as long as you keep it on the fabric. Don't go straight to the seam, because this is the first sack that's been full bleed edge to edge print, which I'm really proud of. It ended up looking really nice. The colors are great, 1970s Lakers colors, like I was telling you a couple of weeks ago. So like a babyish blue, a really nice purple, and white are the three colors. So when we met in the middle and we said, yeah, let's do this, I gave you the art and you showed me the renders, and we said, let's do it. And pretty sure I shed a happy tear and waited for the final test pieces to come back, and they came back and everything is great. And do we have an official launch date for that? Sorry to spring this on you right now, but yeah, do we have an official launch date for this thing?
So I guess we do. Let's do this next Thursday.
Next Thursday?
Yeah. Does that work for you?
Yeah, it works for me. This that's more contingent on your schedule than mine. But yeah, next Thursday sounds fine. I'll put this podcast out probably on the weekend, since timing dictates as such. It won't be an issue for me. We'll get it out. Have all the media together at the same time.
Okay, cool. Yeah, well, if I can, so that would be exciting to kind of put out there. I'll put in a newsletter and, post it on social media and stuff. And I have it right here. Should we hold this up? I don't know. Are you filming a
no,
video?
I'm not recording video, but
okay.
I have not posted it on social media, so you can take the official channels, and I'll do my thing on the day with my social media.
Okay, cool. So I mean, I love the way it came together too. I always kind of imagine, it'd be great, like people could design them, and our friend Kelly, he made one, and I design all sorts of them, but I'm not like an artist, so I've always imagined, this would be a great like platform for somebody to do something great, and then you suggested it. Went back and forth, and I was like, oh, heck yeah. I mean, that sounds great, super. And then I checked out your artwork, and it was like, there was a lot of round, and I was like, this is perfect. But, what I really appreciate, and the thing that I really love about collaboration, whether it's play, and juggling, passing with people, or hanging out and, playing with flop balls, or working on projects like, designing a custom artwork. So you did this artwork, and it's like, that's awesome, because like it was beyond anything I could do, and I wouldn't imagine something like this. I'm like, this is great, and so I made them up, and I made them up, and I just put the image in the middle of a flop ball, like I did on my other one. And you're like, yeah, that's cool, but I was thinking this other thing, which I was thankful for, because like I didn't have, like my brain isn't tuned in that way, so I didn't see that. Yeah, it's kind of scrunched out, and I didn't see or I didn't imagine how much better it would look. So you're like, I kind of imagined it, like all the way to the end. And I was like, I guess we can do that, yeah. And so we did it, and then I got the flop balls back, and like, these look incredible, and so the thing that I love about the collaboration is that we both grow. Like we create this other thing in a third space, which is great and awesome and wonderful and lives on it as an experience. But individually, at least on my side, like I grew as a result. Like I got a little bit more understanding of, how to make something look better with this design. And that's a great way to connect with people and to grow with people and to grow as an individual by creating this shared space of growth. And I experienced it a lot just juggling and playing with skill toys, but it just goes to show that, hey, I'm an artist. Hey, I make these things. Let's come together and work on this project. And I really, beyond having a really cool flop ball, I appreciate the experience and the growth that happened as a result of collaborating with you. So,
right.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for your boldness for stepping up and saying, "Hey, I want to do this thing."
Well, thank you for being enthusiastic and willing to join me in one of my craziest ideas. I have just as much fun collaborating on whatever creative outlet I'm collaborating in with people as I do making artwork for myself by myself in my studio. So it's nice when I can make an experience happen with other creative people that is equally enjoyable as me working on my own creative output myself. And I don't feel as if that's a luxury a lot of artists get to experience or are willing to experience or actually even put themselves in a place to experience. And makes me a little sad for folks that don't do it. But in my experience as an artist and as a person, I have learned and grew the most when I've been working with other people on a project that we are equally passionate about. And I can tell by the way you have a look on your face and how you carry yourself and present yourself in the item and the business. And I like to think I present myself and my work and how I like to conduct myself and my work in a similar fashion when it comes to the passion in which we do these things. And I just felt like it would be silly if I didn't pose the question about doing something together, considering we're both so equally passionate about this thing. And you said yes, and I was pleased, and then we kicked the ball back and forth, and now we have this gorgeous flop ball that will be debuting on Thursday. And I'm happy that it's tangible and it exists and people can use it. I'm just happy that I helped craft something that people are going to enjoy using and playing with, because normally I have a painting up on a wall or some bit of sculpture or something you wear around your neck, and that's insanely tangible, but it's not as much interactive as a kinetic play tool. And that intense level of interaction with a piece of artwork of mine is new, and I look forward to hearing whatever feedback comes my way about it. I enjoy and recognize that will be a thing that happens, so I might as well just be okay with it.
Yeah, for sure. That's it's interesting. It's more than just a nice design on a flop ball, because it sort of holds your story, right? You're an artist, you have this style, you do these things, people are going to play with it. And if they pay attention and they remember, hey, Thomas Thackeray, he designed this, they go and they look you up. They're going to find all your other artwork and they're going to learn about you. And that's really neat. It makes it more meaningful. It makes it more meaningful than just I don't know. It seems like it's more meaningful than like just, I put silly things like "Go get 'em, Tiger," just so it's just like, hey, you got this kind of, motivational messages. I'll put like a library on. That's good for the library. It's meaningful, I guess. But I like the idea that it kind of ties to a human being that has a story that, you kind of cross paths with the flop ball, and you're gonna cross paths with other things in your life.
It definitely was a thing that it made a lot of connections between aspects of my life that I didn't really realize were so intimately connected. How I like to play and intentionally move my body was, previously unrecognized as adjacent to how I like to create art. And the fact that this is a extremely tangible and interactive object that ties those two aspects of my life together in a tangible way is really exciting to me, because now I can pull this thing out of my pocket and be like, hey, this thing represents a lot, or this tool with my art on it, you can do this with it, and why this is helpful is X, Y, and Z. And not only is it helpful because you can do X, Y, and Z with it, it also looks really cool because it has some art on it. And whether that art is intentionally meaningful or not, it does, increase the experience. But it just so happens that the art on this thing is representative of that parallel being drawn between different practices in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting how how you talk about there's no straight lines on it, and all of the play when you're kind of moving a thing in space, you're always kind of redirecting trajectories, and it's all circular because our arms don't go out infinitely in a straight line, so everything's kind of folding in on itself and repeating in like these cycles and these patterns. So it's and I imagine when you're painting, like you're moving your body in like these same ways, that you move when you're.
I have to be very deliberate and repetitive with motions, especially if I'm doing a radially geometric design. If something has to be symmetrical on 6 axes, then you've got to do that thing at least 6 times, and it has to look similar each time. So, the repetition and the flow are all part of my creative practice as far as creating, visual art and my practice of play. I don't think I've ever thrown or caught or manipulated any of these skill or kinetic play tools in a way that is linear, because your body doesn't work like that and the toy doesn't work like that. So there's no way for that to be a thing. I would have felt really silly if I'd have put any straight line in that piece of art and then ended up on a toy that you can't play with in any way that's a straight line.
Right. That's really interesting. I never even thought about that aspect, and I wonder. I mean, I bet it makes you a better player, but this idea that if you're doing a stroke on the right, right of center in one arc, you have to do the reverse on the other side, and you got to kind of invert it, or change it 90 degrees on the top and the bottom, and yep. So when you paint in that style, you're embodying, the flip and the mirror and the reverse of all of these different things.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
in this style.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's still life is probably a little less. Still, things are symmetrical a lot of times, but yeah, one of the things that I really love doing with the flop ball play is, if I do a trick, I always do everything in the other hand. So I want to be, I'm a juggler first, so everything's got to be balanced. I don't want to be offsided. But one of the things that I try to do is I try to reverse those things too. So like the pop and the drop, like it's like, oh, it's the same move. It's just, it's happening in or you're kind of meeting it in different directions on different sides of the timeline. So, right. So yeah, wow, that's really interesting. Next time you play, I got to watch you a little more closely and see if I can see if I can check out, recognize that balance in you a little bit.
It may not be visually evident, but I promise you, it's in my mind. Yeah, so just know it's there, even if you can't see it. So, Paul, can we talk about other artsy flop balls? Because I know there's been a few that weren't like dedicated artist flop balls, but you've had some pretty cool designs of ones out there. Can we talk about those for a minute?
Sure. Yeah. What do you like?
Well, I thought the one with the Easter eggs was pretty cool. I really enjoy the snowflakes, and then you've done some glowy stars and stuff that were really neat. Are there any that really stand out to you as aesthetically pleasing in this mix?
Yeah, aesthetically pleasing. Yeah. So Oh, thank you. But I'll start by saying thank you on the you like the whatever. I don't draw the stuff. I just I find art that I can use, but I can't take any credit for any of that stuff. Although I did do the I did do the watermelon. So I guess I'd say the watermelon flop I'm pretty proud of.
I like the
Um,
watermelon. Yeah,
yeah, I think the thing I like it best about that is like the back because I put like the Rhine or the tiger design kind of on the back, and then
very
I kind of made the
summertime.
logo. Yeah, so it'll work with that. So I like that one. Um, I'm really a you know uh, I do like I was playing with this yours the other day, and I like the stuff that is interesting when it spins for like the finger spins and stuff. Um, so yours is good for that. I do like this one too. It's a split top, and this isn't actually like a printed design, but it's two fabrics and a top half blue, half red. And so I like that while it's playing. And
Is
then with
is
such
the
a
opposite side one solid color? Okay.
just black, yeah.
Okay.
And so the thing I like about this is like you can pay attention to the orientation
Mm-hmm.
um, of the fluff ball as it's flipping and as it's spinning. And I find all that stuff very, very interesting. So I like designs that have aspects that sort of benefit tracking. As far as designs go, though, I mean, I only do ones that I like. So, it's like I did the watermelon because I like that. I did like the sacred geometries because I was really digging those shapes. The Go Get 'em tiger. I was like, oh, I like that. That's clever. So I did that one. So my favorites are the ones that I can track, and then how they feel. Like I really like. I'm very. I like the very soft, floppy ones for most of the stuff that I do. Most of my styles of play. But depends. If I'm doing slides and stuff, like the leather one's pretty good. The denim's kind of slick for that kind of stuff.
I do really enjoy the denim, and I think I've already said that's the one I have in my pocket.
Yeah. I think. I mean, honestly, the ones that I pick up most often are just the plain colors. Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's a good broken in one right there.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
This one's seen probably about 4 months of regular pocket use and day-to-day jamming, and it's becoming one of those very malleable flop balls.
Yeah. And it's like I don't know. That'll be good for some kind of play, and for some kinds of play, it won't really work. So that's another thing that I really kind of dig on. That the different textures allow you to play a different way.
They do.
But favorite designs, I don't know. I kind of oscillate. This will be my favorite one for a while because I'm going to start filming some videos with it. So, but yeah, it's interesting. I'm really digging this one too. I really like the light blue, light green, dark blue. I just like the contrast of the colors. That's the thing too. I like things that contrast well for flips, just because it's kind of pretty,
Yeah, let's talk about the stacker flop balls real quick since you're talking about flips.
So
the stackers.
what do you want to know?
The stackers, they are purposefully lighter and flatter, or lay flatter, so you can stack them and flip them.
Yeah. So it's funny because I didn't start out with those. I started with an 80-gram stack, and I was starting to like, I'm going to start stacking them up and flipping stacks of them, which was great, and it's a good challenge and it's good fun. It's kind of like, it's a good test of like, how locked in you are, like when you pick them up, because some days it's easy and some days it's hard. And it's real discreet. Either you do it or you don't, But I was traveling a lot with them, and they were getting heavy, because I was getting up to like 10, 12, and it's like, these are getting heavy. Like, it's sand, so you're carrying around 5 pounds of sand, in your bag. And so it's like, so I was like, maybe I'll just make some like lighter. And so I did. And, and so they're 60 grams, so 25% lighter, and they just keep stacking. You know, they lay pretty flat, and you can get like stats. So my record's 22,
and you did that on the 22nd of February, right?
Yeah. I did that on 2/22. Actually, I did it on 2/21/22, right? I think that's what it was, and then I posted on 2/22/22.
Cheater.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't gonna wait until the last day to see if I could do it. So it's weird though. It's weird, right? So my record up until that was 20, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I think that's my top number. But then like a week before, somebody's like, oh, you gotta pull up the stack at 22, and I was like, I don't know. Like, So I spent about a week working on it, and not a lot, but just like 5-10 times a day, I'd try it, and I'd just have the camera on, and I got it, and I was amazed. Like, you can watch the video. It's just like I'm kind of in shock.
Oh,
like,
yeah, I see it
right before I settle it down. Yeah, like right before it settles, I'm like I was in shock. But like now I just don't know. Like, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna do 23? Like, when does it end? Like, it's one of those things. Like, it just doesn't end, because whatever you get to, you can always just go for one more.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just I don't know that I want to spend like my life. I mean, I want to know what the upper limit is. I wish there were more people doing it. I'm just, what, 25, 50? Like, I have no idea. All I know is I got
forward a decade, you're going to be doing like 40 stack flop ball.
I mean, who knows?
And some 12-year-old from Italy is going to be like, what are you doing with yourself? Like, man, I do 60. Like 30 per hand, and just blow us all out of the water.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Once you see it can be done, it's like, oh, well, okay, I can do it more.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. I mean, it's funny when you're pushing edge, right? Like, there's nobody else doing it, so I don't have a frame of reference. So, when I was doing 12 or 13, I was like, yeah, I think I reached the upper limit. And then you get 15. 20, I'm like 20. Okay, that I spent like a summer, on and off, trying to get 20. And when I got it, I'm like, okay, well, I think I'm done. And then they're fun, and the play. I really can't wait for it to get a little bit bigger, because right now the community is small, and so there's awesome, innovative stuff happening. But, just a handful of people are doing the small, the innovative stuff. But with the stacking and unstacking of stacks while playing, you could have 6, 7 flop balls stacking and unstacking and ending up in different piles on your body in a flow that is going to be, like, somebody's going to do it. Like, if they don't beat me to it first, I'll figure it out. But,
now that you've said that, it totally makes sense. And I'm over here like, dear God, why? Because you're right. That is a logical extent of this particular thing. But here I am trying to think about how I would do it, and I just feel the wheels turning and not getting anywhere in my mind.
Yeah.
Whenever that person figures it out and posts a video, I will applaud.
Have you been playing with like 2 at all?
Yeah, I do on occasion.
Okay. I mean, it's once you start stacking them, it just opens up. Oh, well, now I can have 2 stacks and I'm stacking. Now it quickly gets really complex just using the back of your hands. And then if you start incorporating wrists and elbows and heads, like it's gonna be nutty. And I can't wait for it. Like, I'm thrilled. Like, I want to see it done. I personally wish, I kind of got into this when I was younger, because then I'd have like 30 years of mastery ahead of me. Like, I'm running out of time for like being able to like execute everything I want to work towards at this point.
I never thought when I was 12, 13, running around Dollywood, meeting all the Miyachi guys that were there, that here I would be sitting at 31 talking with someone about how I am, collaborating with them on a similar product. So I've had, let's see, a decade and a half or so of very very enthusiastic and potent practice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And my dad told me a couple of years ago, he's like, son, I thought you just put them down one day and never pick them back up. And I was, playing with one around the house when I came home to visit or whatever. And I was like, I still carry one of these in my pocket about every day, and it's just never changed.
Yeah.
And dare I say, I would hate to conduct my life in a different way, because it's nice knowing that I have that peace of mind more or less in my pocket, that I can carry with me and have access to anytime. People in yoga talk about, being on your mat and that space being healthy and healthful for you to access at any given time. And one of the fellows I recently had on the podcast, Mr. Carl Gombert, he's an art professor at Maryville College. He said, you need to spend a little time in your studio every day, whether it's the physical, tangible space of your studio or the metaphorical headspace that is your studio. You should spend time there and make that some sort of daily practice. So always having access to the practice of flop ball and the flow and headspace that headspace is super nice for me and the pace of my life. It's nice knowing I can just have that with me all the time.
Yeah, that's great. That's really, I advocate for daily practice of play, but I never really thought of it as like, it's an anchor, like you said, like a yoga mat would be, when you come to that, or when you go into your sitting posture for meditating, this is a similar thing. You're entering into this space that's familiar and that's progressive, and you don't always have to be drilling new tricks, or sometimes it's sort of top down focused where you're working on something and working through something, and sometimes it's sort of bottom up where you just kind of mindlessly doing it and letting things bubble up.
Well, my style of play is a lot less regimented and formal than a lot of people's style of play, because I'm more flow and feel and rhythm this and rhythm that, and I'll be walking and try to bounce it off something over my head and see if I can catch it. I like to interact with my environment and move my body in ways that are comfortable and natural to manipulate this item. So I'm all about the flow. I don't know a lot of tricks, but I do know how to move my body in ways that make me feel good. So it works for me too.
Yeah.
I've been walking around in public. Say again.
No, go ahead.
I said I've been walking around in public just doing, shuffles and transfers like cold fusions and throwing it under my legs as I walk and around my forearms, and doing, waterfalls, just passing things between my hands and hand rolls and all those things, and just mindlessly do it as I'm, going about my day. Just something to occupy the parts of my brain that I'm not using, or the parts of my body that aren't engaged in my task of locomotion.
Mm-hmm.
Just
that's cool.
Yeah, it works for me. Keeps my focus a little more dialed in than if it were just have nothing to concentrate on at all, and I was just walking around the mall, doing nothing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And that's one of those aspects of this particular facet of my life that I haven't really appreciated until recently, because I understand, like, my view on this when I was a teenager was, due to my lack of life experience, my lens on the topic was very shallow. And now that I'm well into my life and understand why and how I do the things that I do, I can see deeper into the topic of play and how beneficial it is to have as a practice in your life. And I'm much more appreciative that these ideas and these tools have found their way onto my hands, not into my hands.
Yeah. Huh.
So it's nice to be able to articulate the perspective that I've gained being a lifelong player now, almost.
Right. Yeah, you're OG. For real.
I mean, I hit the hand sack scene really when Miyachi blew up in the early 2000s. You know, that was when a lot of people were really like early teenagers really hitting their market really, really hard, you know, their target demographic, and going places like Dollywood and amusement parks and FAO Schwartz. And they really carpeted the landscape and did a really good job finding their customers. And, you know, and I'm really appreciative of how they did it. And they did it in a really wholesome way, you know, taking their product straight to where their customers would be having the most fun, pretty much, and a pretty wholesome approach all the way around. And that, just the sheer enthusiasm in that really is what I think kept me so engaged. As removed from the scene as I was living in rural East Tennessee, you know, like there was nobody else other than one or two people at school that I could play with, much less say the word and somebody else know what I mean. But that and the internet coming together at the early 2000s really like helping bolster this subculture that was mostly like people 16 and younger, and now we're all adults and rediscovering this, and the cycle coming back around to us, you know, practicing intentional play on a regular basis again and gaining that that healthful activity back into our workflow and you know, daily routines has been great. I cannot and will not speak. I cannot say enough positive words about this particular category of item, because it has done me in numerous and inquantifiable good in my life. And I say that with all sincerity. I don't know what I'd be doing if I didn't spend tons of time and energy practicing these things. I could have, you know, been off doing things that are bad for me. Right. So I have immense appreciation for these style of items.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hear you. You know, like I said, you know, at the top, I learned how to juggle out of a book. And before that, I didn't get, you know, I wasn't self-motivated to learn or develop or grow in any way. You know, I was kind of getting in trouble and just sort of being mischievous because I just didn't have anything that was like fulfilling me. I didn't have, you know, but you know, I discovered the juggling and it changed everything for me. Mm-hmm. It changed how I connected with people and you know, I've always sort of been a hand, so I like performing, but teaching people to juggle, you know, early on and then all the other stuff, just immensely gratifying because, you know, like you know, you turn someone on to this. You know, a lot of people have fun doing it, but you change lives. People will do that for the rest of their life. Many people will do it for the rest of their life, and now they have something.
I can't imagine what the trajectory of my well-being would have been if I'd never discovered this category of thing. I mean, I would have still been a creative person because, you know, a pencil and a paintbrush got me first. But immediately after that, it was kinetic play and all this jazz. And I know exactly how much time I've spent in my life doing this, and I can't imagine what else I could have done that would have been as constructive for a teen and a young adult, you know, coming into the world and having a positive outlet for time and energy like that is immensely healthful, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's a nice safe space, right? Like as far as learning and growing, it doesn't matter. It's a sack of sand. It's a juggling ball that you drop. It's something you're swinging around. Like it's a space to play and grow and engage that doesn't have any consequence. And that's what makes it so freeing and so playful and so refreshing.
I have to disagree with you there. There is one consequence, because if you're going to play with it, you're going to drop it. And bending over to pick it up is always the consequence. But
that's true.
But if you want to get really heady about that, like, you have to bend over and pick it up. you bow to the thing, you become humbled by in the act of lowering your head. That's a historical humbling and grounding action. Low roofed huts, you had to bow to get into them, to pay your respects and gain entry. And throughout human civilization, through ages and ages, bowing and becoming low to the ground has been a recognition of being humbled or submitting to or showing appreciation of. And sometimes when I drop this thing, I get really mad, and then I remember if I want to continue this wonderful thing, then I must bend over and pick it up and shut my mouth and try it again.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons that this resonates so deeply with people, and lots of people, is that the first thing that we do as babies is we lift our head up. Like the first experience we have is that of gravity. That's our experience in the womb. We're pulled down. There's always down. There's always gravity. And we sit up, we stand up, we reach up, we move, we aspire. Everything's up and out and away from the ground. Usually, but gravity is there, and in the end, we all end up getting buried underneath it. So, it's sort of this primordial experience of rising up, and that's kind of the fun, I feel like, of juggling, or just keeping things in the air. It's an unnatural state that we get to kind of play in and explore this invisible realm of physics. Before we drop and then either pick up or give up.
Right. It's you are forced in that moment to make the decision.
Yeah.
All right, Paul. So we've been on the call here for 58 minutes, and I think I'm about ready to wrap this up. I think we just hit some really good notes to end this conversation on. I'm happy we both agree that there are healthful and humbling aspects to intentional play that not only keep people physically healthy and well, but mentally healthy and well. And that is one of the things that I most often and most passionately appreciate about these devices. And I'm happy to see another passionate person trying to put them out there in the world. And I'm happy to see another passionate person engage passionate people like me to make these things different and cool. And I am greatly appreciative of your time and energy that we've put in this project together. So thank you very much, Paul Miller. I greatly appreciate everything you and I have been able to accomplish in this small context. Will you tell people your social medias and websites and all that jazz?
Sure, yeah. So the website is flockball.com. That's F as in Frank, LOP, ball.com. And you can find us on Instagram is where I'm most active, and that's the Flockball, or at the Flockball, or hashtag Flockball. Yeah. And if you go to the website, if I have any YouTube links or whatever, it's all there.
And there are a variety of things we didn't even talk about as far as products that are available at theflockball.com. There's lines, loops, throwbacks, all kinds of other wonderful stuff. He has tethered items that spin and wobble and wave and all kinds of cool shenanigans. Please go check out theflockball.com and thoroughly inspect the shop. There's a lot of cool things in there, and I hope you find something you enjoy and decide to purchase, because I've done it multiple times and I have not regretted spending any pennies that I've thrown towards this man and his entrepreneurial endeavors. So please, everybody, go check out theflockball.com, buy some stuff, play with some stuff, help yourself out. This has been a really fun bonus episode of the KAAMP. Paul, thank you very much. I'm Thomas Zachary. This has been great. Thank y'all for listening, and have a good day.